I never imagined I'd see my ex-husband again. Definitely not on a cold morning in Canada, bent over with a broom, sweeping the streets like a man who had lost everything. And when our eyes finally met, the truth he told me broke me in ways I thought I had healed from. Before I continue, where are you watching from? USA, Canada, South Africa, Ghana, Nigeria? Tell me in the comments. This story is unbelievable. This is the story of how the man who once called me his queen became a stranger sweeping the streets in a foreign land, and how the confession he made that day changed everything I thought I knew about our marriage. It was a Tuesday morning. Nothing special about it, just another cold day in Toronto where the wind cuts through your jacket no matter how many layers you wear. I was walking to the coffee shop on Queen Street, the same route I take every morning, earbuds in, mine somewhere between my to-do list and the argument I'd had with my coworker the day before. And then I saw him. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. You know that feeling when you see someone who looks like someone from your past, and your brain does that quick scan, same height, same walk, same. Wait, I stopped mid-step. My coffee order forgotten. My playlist still humming in my ears, but I couldn't hear it anymore. There he was. My ex-husband. Bent over, orange safety vest, a broom in his hands, sweeping the streets like he'd done it his whole life. I felt my chest tighten. The air got thinner. It had been 4 years since I'd seen him. 4 years since he told me he was leaving for Canada to build something better. 4 years since he walked out of our house with 2 suitcases and a dream that didn't include me. And now here he was. Not in a boardroom. Not in a nice car. Not living the life he swore he'd build. He was sweeping the streets. I wanted to turn around, pretend I didn't see him, keep walking like I had somewhere important to be, but my feet wouldn't move. My heart was pounding so loud I thought people around me could hear it. And then he looked up. Our eyes met. For a second, I saw the man I used to know. The man who used to hold my hand and tell me I was his queen. The man who promised me forever. But that second passed. Because what I saw in his eyes wasn't love. It wasn't even shame. It was fear. I need you to understand who this man was before I tell you what happened next. When I married him, he was everything I thought I wanted. Confident, charming. The kind of man who walked into a room and people noticed. He had plans. Big ones. He talked about building businesses, buying properties, making generational wealth. He made me believe we were going to conquer the world together. He wore tailored shirts, expensive cologne. His shoes were always polished. He'd wake up at 5 a.m. to work out, then come home and tell me about deals he was closing and connections he was making. I was so proud to call him my husband. But pride is a funny thing. It can build you up, or it can blind you. I remember the parties we went to, how he'd talk about making it abroad, like it was some kind of destiny, like staying in our home country was beneath him. He'd say things like, "We're bigger than this place, babe. We need to go where the real opportunities are." And I believed him. God, I believed him. So when I saw him that morning, sweeping debris off the sidewalk with his head down and his shoulders hunched, I didn't recognize him. Not physically, I knew it was him. But the man I married would never have been caught dead doing manual labor. He used to say things like, "I'm not built for struggle. I'm built for success." Yet here he was, struggling. I stood there for what felt like forever. Watching him work. Watching the way he moved slow. Tired. Like every sweep of that broom took something out of him. And I felt something twist inside me. Was it pity? Anger? Sadness? Maybe all three. Because the truth is, I wasn't innocent either. And that's where the story begins. We met at a wedding. Isn't that how all the best and worst love stories start? He was the groomsman who made everyone laugh. I was the bridesmaid who rolled her eyes at his jokes but secretly thought he was charming. By the end of the night, we'd exchanged numbers. By the end of the month, we were inseparable. He used to send me voice notes at 2 a.m., talking about his dreams. He'd say, "One day, baby, I'm going to give you everything. A big house, trips around the world, a life people envy." And I fell for it. I fell for him. We got married a year later. Small ceremony. My family was skeptical. They said he talked too much and did too little. But I defended him. I said they didn't see what I saw. that he was ambitious, that he was going to make it. The first year was beautiful. We were broke, but we were happy. We'd stay up late planning our future, laughing about baby names we'd use one day, arguing about which country we'd move to first. But then the cracks started showing. He became obsessed with making it. Every conversation turned into a business pitch. Every failure made him angry. He started comparing himself to other men with cars, houses, businesses. Men who had already made it, and I started to feel like I wasn't enough. He'd come home frustrated, barely speaking to me. When I'd ask what was wrong, he'd snap. You wouldn't understand. You don't know the pressure I'm under. I tried to be supportive. I tried to be patient. But patience runs out when you're being treated like a stranger in your own marriage. Then one night, I saw something I shouldn't have. A message on his phone. From a woman I didn't know. And everything I thought I knew about my marriage shattered. Looking back, the first sign was a message I shouldn't have seen. I wasn't the type to go through phones. I really wasn't. But that night, something in my gut told me to look. He'd left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered. It buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. I glanced at it, and the name on the screen wasn't saved. Just a number. But the preview of the message made my blood run cold. I miss you too. When are you coming over again? My hands were shaking as I picked up the phone. I didn't even think. I just opened it. He never locked his phone around me. He said it was because he had nothing to hide. Clearly, that was a lie. I scrolled. And scrolled. And scrolled. Messages. Photos. Voice notes. All with her. A woman named Cassandra. And the timestamps? Some of them were from nights he told me he was working late, or meeting with investors. I felt like I was going to throw up. There were messages where he called her baby, where he talked about how complicated things were with me, where he said he wished he could just start over with someone who understood him better. I sat on the kitchen floor with his phone in my hand, reading every single message like I was watching my marriage die in real time. And then I found the worst one. It was a voice note. I pressed play. His voice came through, low and tired. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. Living 2 lives is exhausting. I love her, but I don't think I'm in love with her anymore. I need to figure out a way to leave. Clean. Without destroying her. I stopped breathing. He didn't want to destroy me? Too late. I was already destroyed. When he came out of the shower, I was still sitting on the floor, phone in hand, tears streaming down my face. He froze. His towel wrapped around his waist. Water still dripping from his hair. Baby, he started. Don't, I cut him off. My voice didn't even sound like mine. It was cold, flat. Don't call me that. He walked toward me slowly, like I was a wounded animal he didn't want to scare. Let me explain. Explain what? I stood up, shaking. Explain how you've been cheating on me? Explain how you've been lying to my face for months? Explain how you told another woman you're not in love with me anymore? His face crumbled. But I didn't care. I was past caring. It's not what you think, he said weakly. Then what is it? I threw his phone at him. It hit his chest and fell to the floor. Tell me, what is it? He didn't answer. He just stood there, pathetic, guilty, silent. And that night, he said something I never forgot. He looked at me with tears in his eyes and said, I'm sorry, but I'm not the man you think I am. I never was. That night turned into the longest night of my life. We didn't sleep. We didn't even sit down. We just stood in that kitchen, yelling, crying, breaking each other down word by word. I asked him how long it had been going on. He said, 6 months. 6 months of lies. 6 months of him kissing me goodnight, and then texting her before he fell asleep. I asked him if he loved her. He said he didn't know. He said he was confused. Confused. That's the word he used, like our marriage was some kind of math problem he couldn't solve. I asked him if he ever loved me, and for the first time that night, he didn't answer right away. That silence broke me more than anything he'd said. I did, he finally whispered. I did love you, but I don't know when it stopped feeling like enough. Enough. I wasn't enough. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I didn't know what else to do. I'd given this man everything. My time. My trust. My body. My future. And I still wasn't enough. Get out, I said. He blinked. What? Get out, I repeated, my voice steady now. Pack your things and leave. I don't care where you go. I don't care who you go to. But you're not staying here. He tried to argue, tried to say we could work through this, tried to say he'd end things with her and fix us. But I was done. I was done being the woman who waited, who forgave, who stayed when she should have left. So I walked to the bedroom, grabbed his suitcase, and started throwing his clothes into it. Shirts, shoes, belts, everything. I didn't fold anything. I didn't care. He stood in the doorway watching me, crying like a child who'd been caught stealing. Please, he begged. Don't do this. We can fix this. I stopped, looked him dead in the eyes, and said the words that ended us. There's nothing left to fix. You already destroyed it. He left that night, took his suitcase, took his lies, took his guilt, and I never saw him again. Until that morning on Queen Street. But I didn't know he had already made a dangerous decision that would change his life forever. A few weeks after he left, I heard through mutual friends that he was planning to move abroad. Canada, specifically, Toronto. He posted about it on social media, pictures of his visa, captions about new beginnings and chasing greatness. He talked about how he was going to build an empire and level up. People congratulated him in the comments, called him brave, called him a king. I wanted to scream. Because while he was out there getting praise for running away, I was the one left behind picking up the pieces of the life we'd built together. I had to explain to my family why he wasn't around anymore. I had to deal with the awkward questions, the pity, the I told you so looks. I had to cancel the plans we'd made, the trips, the dreams, everything. And he got to start over. Clean slate, new country, no consequences. At first, I was bitter. So bitter I couldn't even say his name without feeling sick. I'd see his posts, him at the airport, him in Toronto, him smiling like he'd won the lottery, and I'd feel this rage bubbling up inside me. But then, I stopped looking. I unfollowed him, blocked him, deleted his number. I decided that if he wanted to build a new life without me, then I'd build one without him too. I got a new job, started therapy, learned how to be alone without feeling lonely. I rebuilt myself piece by piece. And honestly, I started to feel free. I stopped wondering what he was doing, stopped caring if he was happy, stopped checking if he ever thought about me. I moved on. Or at least, I thought I did. Because about a year after he left, something changed. The posts stopped. The updates disappeared. His social media went quiet. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was just busy. Maybe he'd finally grown up and realized the internet wasn't real life. But then I started hearing things, whispers from people who knew him. He'd lost his job, he was struggling, he wasn't doing well. And then one day, and the calls stopped coming. Not to me, I'd already blocked him, but to his family, his friends, everyone. He just went silent. And no one knew why. The silence was louder than anything he'd ever said to me. At first, his family tried to reach out. His mother called me once awkward, desperate, asking if I'd heard from him. I told her no, told her we didn't talk anymore, told her I hoped he was okay, even though part of me wasn't sure I meant it. She cried on the phone, said she was worried, said he'd stopped answering her calls too, said the last time they spoke, he sounded different, tired, defeated, not like the confident man who'd left with all those big dreams. I felt bad for her. But I didn't know what to tell her. He wasn't my problem anymore. Then the rumors started. You know how it is, someone knows someone who knows someone. And in our community, news travels fast, especially bad news. I heard he'd been fired from his job, something about showing up late too many times. About attitude problems. About not being able to adjust to the work culture. I heard he'd moved apartments 3 times in 6 months because he couldn't keep up with rent. I heard he'd gotten involved with the wrong crowd. People who gambled, people who drank too much, people who made bad decisions, and dragged everyone around them down. I heard he'd been arrested once, nothing serious, some kind of misunderstanding at a bar, but still, arrested. Every time I heard something new, I felt this weird mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to feel satisfied, like, see, Karma is real. You left me broken, and now you're broken too. But another part of me, the part that remembered the man I'd loved, felt something else. Fear. Fear that he was spiraling. Fear that he was alone in a foreign country, with no one to pull him back. Fear that the man who once had so much pride wouldn't survive the fall. I tried to ignore it, tried to tell myself it wasn't my business, that he'd made his choices, and now he had to live with them. But late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd wonder, was he okay? Was he safe? Was he even alive? I'd catch myself almost unblocking his number, almost sending a message, almost checking if he was still posting anywhere online. But I never did. Because what would I even say? Hey, I heard you're struggling. Hope you're not dead? No, I'd moved on. I had to stay moved on. But the universe had other plans. Because nothing prepared me for what actually happened to him. When he finally told me the full story that day on Queen Street, after I'd worked up the courage to approach him, I realized I hadn't known anything at all. We sat in a small Tim Hortons a few blocks away. He looked so much older than I remembered. His face was weathered. His hands were rough, calloused. His eyes had this emptiness to them, like someone had turned off the lights behind them. He ordered black coffee. I ordered tea. Neither of us touched our drinks. You want to know what happened? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. I did. I needed to know. He took a deep breath and started talking. He said the first few months in Canada were good. He'd gotten a job at a logistics company. Nothing fancy. But it paid the bills. He'd rented a small apartment in Scarborough. He was optimistic. He thought he was finally building something. But then, the company downsized. He was let go. And that's when everything started falling apart. He couldn't find another job. Not one that paid enough to cover rent and food and bills. He applied everywhere, warehouses, restaurants, retail stores. But every place wanted Canadian experience. And he had none. His savings ran out within 2 months. He moved to a cheaper place. Then an even cheaper one. Eventually, he ended up in a rooming house sharing a kitchen and bathroom with 5 other people. People he didn't trust. People who stole his food when he wasn't looking. He said he stopped eating properly. Started losing weight, started feeling like a ghost in his own life. He tried to reach out to friends he'd made when he first arrived. But those friends disappeared the moment they realized he had nothing to offer them. No money, no connections, no value. He said he felt invisible. He started drinking, not because he wanted to, but because it was the only thing that made the shame go away. The shame of knowing he'd left everything behind me, his family, his reputation for this. He said there were nights he'd sit on the floor of his tiny room and cry. Nights he'd think about ending it all because the weight of his failure was too much to carry. But he didn't. He kept going. Because he was too proud to go back home and admit he'd been wrong. So he took whatever work he could get. Day labor, cleaning jobs, and eventually, sweeping streets. He said it was the only job he could find that didn't ask too many questions. That didn't require references or experience. That just needed someone willing to show up. And that's what he did. He showed up. Every morning at 5 a.m. He swept. He picked up trash. He became the kind of man he swore he'd never be. By the time he finished talking, I had tears in my eyes. Not because I felt sorry for him, but because I realized something. The man sitting across from me wasn't the villain I'd made him out to be in my head. He wasn't some monster who'd destroyed my life and walked away unscathed. He was just broken, like I'd been, maybe even more. But then he looked at me with those empty eyes and said something that made my heart stop. There's one more secret, he whispered. The real reason I ran away from everyone. I leaned forward. My tea was cold now, but I didn't care. What secret? He hesitated. His hands were shaking. He looked around the coffee shop like he was afraid someone might hear. I didn't just leave because I wanted a better life, he said slowly. I left because I had to. What do you mean? He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then he told me. Before he'd left for Canada, he'd gotten involved with some people. Bad people. People who loaned money at insane interest rates. People you didn't say no to. He said he'd borrowed money to fund a business idea. Some kind of investment scheme he thought would make him rich quick. He said he was so desperate to prove himself, to prove he wasn't a failure that he ignored all the red flags. The business failed, spectacularly, and suddenly, he owed a lot of money, money he didn't have. The threats started coming, phone calls, messages, people showing up at our house when I wasn't home. He said that's why he was so distant in the final months of our marriage. That's why he was always stressed. Always angry. Always looking over his shoulder. He said he didn't tell me because he didn't want to scare me. Didn't want me to know how badly he'd messed up. So, when the opportunity came to move to Canada, he took it. Not because he wanted to chase a dream, but because he was running. Running from the debt. Running from the danger. Running from the mess he'd created. I thought if I left, they'd forget about me, he said, his voice breaking. I thought I could start over and eventually make enough money to pay them back. But I couldn't. I failed here too. And now, he trailed off. Now what? I asked. He looked at me, and for the first time since we'd sat down, I saw fear. Real, raw fear. Now they found me. My stomach dropped. What? They found me, he repeated. A few months ago, someone from back home saw me here. Word got back, and now they're saying if I don't pay, they'll come after my family, my mother, my sisters. I felt like I couldn't breathe. So what are you going to do? He shook his head. I don't know. I'm trying to save money, trying to figure it out, but I'm barely surviving as it is. We sat in silence for a long time, the weight of his confession hanging between us. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was angry that he'd kept all of this from me. Angry that he'd put himself in this situation. Angry that even now, after everything, his problems were still affecting people. But another part of me felt something I didn't expect. Compassion. Because I realized that while I'd been healing and moving on, he'd been drowning. Quietly. Alone. And then, he did something I never saw coming. He reached across the table and grabbed my hand. I know I don't deserve it, he said, his voice cracking. I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed everything we had. But I need to ask you something. I pulled my hand back. What? His eyes filled with tears. And then, he begged me for something I never expected. I need your help. Those 4 words hung in the air like smoke, heavy, suffocating. I stared at him. At this man who had lied to me. Cheated on me. Abandoned me. This man who had walked out of my life like I meant nothing. And now he was asking me for help. Help? I repeated, my voice sharper than I intended. You need my help? He nodded, tears streaming down his face now. I know I have no right to ask. I know that. But you're the only person I can turn to. The only person Who what? I cut him off. Who still cares? Who's stupid enough to feel sorry for you after everything you did? He flinched. I deserve that. You deserve more than that, I said, pulling my hands off the table and crossing my arms. You broke me. You know that, right? You didn't just leave. You shattered me. It took me years to put myself back together. And now you want me to what? Save you? Not save me, he said quickly. I need to borrow some money. Just enough to send back home. To protect my family. I'll pay you back. I swear. I just need money. I laughed bitterly. Of course. That's what this is about. It's not like that. Then what is it like? I leaned forward, my voice low and sharp. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you only remembered I existed because you need something from me. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out, because he knew I was right. I sat back in my chair, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to stand up, walk out, and never look back. He wasn't my problem anymore. His debt, his mistakes, his mess, it had nothing to do with me. But another part of me, the part that still remembered the good times. The part that knew his family. The part that hated the idea of anyone being hurt because of his stupidity, that part was conflicted. How much? I asked quietly. His eyes widened. What? How much do you need? He hesitated. 3,000. That's what they're asking for. To leave my family alone. $3,000. That was rent for 2 months. Groceries. Bills. That was my safety net. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the broken man sitting across from me. The man who used to be so full of pride and confidence. The man who now had nothing. and I felt something twist in my chest. Not love. I didn't love him anymore. But maybe pity, or empathy, or just exhaustion from carrying around all this anger. I need time to think, I said finally. His face fell. I don't have time. They gave me 2 weeks. Then you should have thought about that before you borrowed money from dangerous people. I snapped. I said I need time. That's the best I can offer you right now. He nodded slowly, defeated. Okay, thank you. Just, thank you for even considering it. I stood up, grabbed my bag, started to walk toward the door. But before I could leave, he called out. I'm sorry. I stopped, didn't turn around. I'm sorry for everything, he continued, his voice breaking. I know it doesn't change anything. I know it doesn't fix what I did. But I need you to know. I regret it. All of it. Every lie. Every mistake. I regret hurting you most of all. I stood there for a moment, my hand on the door handle. Then I walked out without saying another word. I didn't know if I'd help him. I didn't know if I even could. But before I could decide, someone else showed up. 2 days later, I got a message from an unknown number. We need to talk. It's about your ex-husband. I stared at my phone, my heart racing. Who was this? How did they get my number? I typed back, who is this? The response came immediately. My name is Cassandra. I think you know who I am. My blood turned to ice. Cassandra. The woman from the messages. The woman he'd cheated on me with. I wanted to throw my phone across the room, block the number, pretend I'd never seen it. But curiosity got the better of me. What do you want? I typed. To tell you the truth. About him. About everything. Can we meet? I shouldn't have agreed. I knew that. But something in me needed to know. Needed to hear what she had to say. So I met her the next day, at a cafe downtown, neutral ground. She was pretty. I hated that I noticed that first. Long dark hair. Soft features. The kind of woman men probably fell over themselves for. She stood up when she saw me. Nervous. Thank you for coming. I didn't sit down right away. Just stood there, arms crossed. You have 5 minutes. She nodded. I know you hate me. You have every right to. But I need you to know something. I didn't know he was married. Not at first. I raised an eyebrow. Convenient. I'm serious, she said, her voice shaking. He told me he was single. That he'd just moved here to start over. I believed him. And by the time I found out the truth, I was already in too deep. So you stayed, I said coldly, even after you knew. She looked down. Yes, I did. And I'm not proud of it, but that's not why I wanted to talk to you. Then why? She took a deep breath. Because he lied to you. About why he left. About the debt. About everything. I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, scrolled through it, then turned the screen toward me. It was a bank transfer, from her account, to his, $20,000. I gave him this money 6 months ago, she said quietly. He told me it was to pay off the debt. To make the threats stop. He said once he paid it, he'd be free. We'd be free. I stared at the screen, my mind reeling. 20,000? She nodded. But he didn't use it to pay off the debt. He gambled it, at a casino. Lost it all in one night. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. He lied to me too, she continued, tears in her eyes now. He's been lying to everyone. His family. You. Me. It's closer to 50. And the people he owes? They're not just threatening his family, they're threatening him. He's in real danger. I sat down slowly, my legs weak. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because he's going to ask you for money, she said. And I don't want you to make the same mistake I did. He won't use it to fix anything. He'll waste it. And then he'll come back asking for more. I felt numb. Betrayed all over again. Not because I still loved him, but because even now, even after everything, he was still lying. What do you want me to do? I asked. She shook her head. I don't know. I just thought you deserved to know the truth. We sat in silence for a moment, and that's when I realized. I had already made my decision. I didn't give him the money. I know some of you probably think I should have. That despite everything, he was still a human being in trouble. That I should have shown mercy. But here's the thing I learned. You can't save someone who isn't willing to save themselves. I called him the next day and told him no. Told him I knew about Cassandra's money. Told him I knew he'd lied again. He tried to explain. Tried to say it wasn't what it looked like. Tried to say he'd made a mistake, but he was trying to fix it. But I didn't let him finish. You need help, I said. Real help. Not money. Therapy. Support. A plan. But I can't be the one to give that to you. Not anymore. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I understand. And that was it. The last conversation we ever had. I don't know what happened to him after that. I don't know if he figured it out. If he got the help he needed. If he's even still in Canada. Part of me hopes he found a way. That he got his life together. That he learned from his mistakes. But part of me knows that some people never do. And that's not my burden to carry anymore. I spent so many years holding on to anger. Holding on to pain. Holding on to the idea that he owed me something, an apology, an explanation, closure. But seeing him that day on Queen Street, broken and sweeping the streets, I realized something. He didn't owe me anything. And I didn't owe him anything either. The best thing I could do for both of us was let go. So I did. I walked away from that coffee shop, from that conversation, from him, and I didn't look back. Because I finally understood. Closure isn't something someone gives you. It's something you give yourself. I rebuilt my life. I found peace. I learned to forgive, not for him, but for me. And now, years later, I can honestly say I'm happy. Truly happy. In a way I never was when I was with him. So tell me, if you were me, what would you have done? Would you have helped him? Would you have walked away? Would you have given him another chance? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know. Because this story, this life, it's messy, and there's no right answer. But I made my choice, and I'm at peace with it. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications because besties, you will enjoy being here as I update you on marriage challenges as your opinions heals other women in such challenges all over the world. Let's make the world a better place by doing the tiniest of good works.